If you're buying one of these, it's because you're going to be pounding on it all day long. And for that, you need a keyboard that is going to work and feel nice and get everything done the way you want it to. The Canon is a bad example because on this particular one that I have, that 4 key is quite touchy. I have tried cleaning that without a whole lot of success. I cannot say that that is a reflection of Canon in general, just this model. But it kind of gives you an idea of the problems you can have. If you want to type 455, let's do 450. Whoops, it missed the 4. Let's try that again. Watch, I will type 455, and that 4 is probably not going to show. 455. See, you hit the number, it doesn't show up. If you're doing this frequently, you're going to throw this thing in the trash, right? Because that number has to show up every single time. You come over here, this one is a little bit better, quite a bit better. That's what you want. These keys, they wobble around a little bit. They feel okay, but not great. The keyboards that are an absolute dream to use are on the Victors and the Monroes. The Monroe heavy-duty calculators, all of them have special technology. I can't remember what they call it, but the keys are really smooth to press. They're light to the touch, very low travel. You press those and you get what you type pretty much every single time. If you press one key before the other one is finished, like if I press 1, I'm holding it down, press 2, and then pick up on the 1, it registered both of them. So in other words, it can register the second key before you actually release the first one. A lot of these won't do that. So if you can, try out the keyboard, try smashing out numbers very quickly on it to see how the feel is. One more interesting thing about the Monroe, these 5 keys across the top, which are labeled up, down, replace, insert, and reprint, basically so their default assignment is to edit the entries that you've done. Those are soft keys. They can be reassigned to different functions, and you can't quite see what they are here, but there's a little legend on the top here of the case to say what they do. They can be reassigned to do finance calculations, currency conversion, VAT tax, discount tax, time card editing, which is basically time calculations, just the regular editing like it has for the default. Profit and margin, that's your cost cell margin calculations. Memory 2, we'll talk about that, that's an independent memory. And spreadsheet for totaling columns and rows of data. This Victor is the same. I believe some of the lower models of the Victor may use different technology for the keyboard, I'm not sure. This Victor also wonderful keyboard, and last but not least you get the Casio. It kind of feels a little different from the Canon. Low throw, they don't go very far. They seem to register okay though. It's kind of analogous to a person using a gaming keyboard. When you're playing games on the computer, you really need things to register. They have to register fast. They have to register accurately. It's kind of the same with the keyboards. You might care about the number of digits that these things can handle. If you're working in sort of a small to medium-sized business, even the Victor 1530-6 might work. That only has 10 digits of accuracy. Most of them will do 12 digits of accuracy, like the Monroe, and I believe that Casio there too. If you're working with the national debt, you can use the Victor PL8000 and some others. That will give you 14 digits of accuracy. I'm a guy coming from a scientific calculator background, and those talk sort of ad nauseum about the details of how numbers are represented and how calculations are done, and some of them have calculations done in it with extended precision numbers that you can't see on the display. The calculators here have very little information about that. The Monroe says that they will do 24-digit calculations, even though it's a 12-digit calculator. I suspect what they mean there is that if you do a multiplication, for example, you multiply two 12-digit numbers together, it's a 24-digit result. And I think it will do the calculation to all 24 digits and then round it off to 12 for display. The Monroe will also display numbers in scientific notation, so even though when they say it's 12 digits, they don't just mean a 12-digit number, they mean 12 digits of accuracy. So I think I can show you that here if we do 1 times 100 equals, and we will keep multiplying that out. And here, you can see that the display has switched to scientific mode. One more issue is the size of the case, depending on the size of your desk or wherever it is that you're going to put these things. That might make a difference. Here I have temporarily moved the Monroe, which is my largest calculator, next to the Sharp, which I believe is the smallest. And you can see there's a fairly big difference in the size of the case. It's both wider and longer. The Monroe is long, as I mentioned before, because that paper roll sits back under the case in here. Without that, it would probably be shorter. If space is a big issue, consider the Casio HR170RC. This, I believe, is functionally equivalent to the 200RC, and I say that because the manual that comes with the 200 also applies to the 170. But the 170 is quite a bit smaller. I think it has all the same functions, all the same buttons. They're just kind of crammed together. So for example, if you're using this at home and the kitchen, you've got a small amount of space, something like that 170 might be a great choice. The other ones, as I mentioned, are other so-called mini printing calculators. They are typically quite small. They print. They're typically not adding machine style ones. If you don't know what that means, watch my other video. But they work the way your school calculator works. 1 + 1 = gives you 2. How about support? What if you need to talk to the company, get a replacement, that kind of thing? Well, I can only speak from personal experience for Monroe, and I can give them glowing reports. Monroe is a local company. They're actually only a few miles from where I am. They answer the phone. You can chat with them online. It's real people. They're incredibly friendly. You send email to them. They respond with the email. Here's a great one. I sent them some reports of errors or omissions in some of their manuals. They wrote right back and they said, we will fix that. They had, what was it? One of the manuals online was basically a PDF of images, right? So you couldn't search the text. And I emailed John at Monroe. He's the marketing guy over there. And I said, hey, John, this manual is not searchable for text. And he got back to me, like a day later and said, hey, you're right, I'm going to fix that. And a couple days later, it was fixed. How often do you get that kind of response from a company? Now, that's my personal experience with Monroe. I have read online of similar experiences with Victor. Anyway, Victor, from what I have read, is similar in that they respond very quickly. You call them up, somebody answers the phone, you don't end up with just please send a message kind of thing. So those two companies are wonderful. The others, I don't know. They might be just as good, they might be terrible, I cannot say.